Speedway opener. It's the 24 hours, the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. Hello, everybody. We're live in sound and vision as we bring together the biggest endurance racing audience of the year. Well, we're only the end of January, but already the blue riband event that is the Rolex 24 of Daytona is just a few moments away. It's been a packed grid walk with the great and the good of motor racing, not just endurance racing, from the disciplines of IndyCar, Le Mans racing, single-seaters, right up to the very top at Formula One, and the current NASCAR Monster Energy Cup champion in Kyle Busch is here for Lexus this weekend. They're all racing for the big, shiny trophy and the white-faced, three-dial Daytona Rolex Cosmograph watch, originally designed for the Apollo space astronauts. It didn't get picked for that, and since it's become an icon of motor racing. 3.5 miles around the road circuit here, which includes the high banks of the Daytona International Speedway that the stock cars run on. The infield circuit looks relatively easy, but the nuances need to be tamed. And even with 38 cars, only 38 cars here, the concentration levels of the drivers, particularly in the 13 hours and 21 minutes of darkness that we will have, the joint longest darkness period of any international 24-hour race this year, shared with the Dubai 24 hours, by the way, in case you were wondering. Well, those concentration levels have to be kept up at all time. This is a bumper crowd, still exotic cars and sports car fans coming in to the sports car mecca that is the Daytona International Speedway. Our Grand Marshal is Christian Fittipaldi, still inextricably linked with Cadillac Racing and Mustang sampling. The command to get running here at Daytona given by Christian Fittipaldi. He did that with some style and some verve. The engines fire, and already, I've got to say, the goosebumps are there. Johnny Palmer alongside me and Jeremy Shaw. Johnny, you're the man in the middle here. This is it. No time for anything else other than racing.
Absolutely right. We've waited all week for this, haven't we? And yeah, the promise of good weather, the promise of a fabulously close race as well, and 4 incredibly competitive categories within that. I think these DPIs are not going to be hanging about at all in the early stages. Yes, they all want to keep it clean, but I think, you know, with the ideal weather, it's going to be a particularly cool night, I'm hearing as well. So race engines like that, and I think there's the potential for happy hour at what, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning as the sun begins to think about coming back up again.
2 pace laps behind the safety car, or the pace cars it will be now. Safety car, if it has to come out again, Jeremy, at what looks to be, what could be a very fast and frenetic opening here. We'll keep you in touch with whether we think we're going to get somewhere near the 808 lap new record that we set, what, a couple of races ago here, when we completely took apart the old distance and a lap record. The character of this race has changed inexorably over the years as the reliability of these cars has just gotten better and better. Gone are the days where you drive at 65, 70, 75% until the last 2 hours of the race.
Yeah, pedal to the metal now all the way through. What a brilliant way to get started that was by Christian Fittipaldi, our Grand Marshal. Yeah, I'm sure there's well, I know there's some sort of trepidation there for Christian. Uncharted territory for him. He was always in this race, you know, won this race, what, 3 times, didn't he? And he's now watching it for the first time. Yeah, it was a brilliant job there, Christian, and just sets the scene perfectly for me for what I think is going to be a really gripping Rolex 24 at Daytona.
Well, our Michelin countdown to Graham, we talked about the Porsche keys to the race. Looking after the traffic, getting through the night, being there at noon on Sunday, always going to be important here. But with so much green flag racing with potential, empty pit lane, by the way, everyone's got away, then keeping the penalties to a minimum, or indeed none at all, is going to be absolutely key, as is the teamwork required, Johnny Palmer, when the cars come into the pit. And perhaps even more so on a green flag pit stop, the pressure's on even more.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why so many teams used sessions to come in and out, not do many flying laps in the later session, free practice 4, so that they were fine-tuned in terms of doing a pit stop. I mean, you're still doing it as quickly as possible under a caution, but there's extra pressure, that hidden pressure, when you know the race is live, and literally there's not a tenth of a second to lose. 24 hours on the clock. The sun looks glorious above the high banking here at Daytona.
I love to see 24 colon 00 colon 00 as far as the timing on the top of the screen is concerned, because that tells us we are ready to go for another Rolex 24. Absolutely magnificent sight to see everybody here at the track, and the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship season is about to get underway. The community that is endurance racing is an extraordinary thing. Hello to everybody around the world. In Australia, we felt your pain over the last few weeks with the wildfires, and we'll see you in a week's time for the Bathurst 12 Hours. And I know there's plenty of you tuned in down there at the moment.
Chinese New Year today as well, and
Burns Night, yes, for the Scots here.
But I know that, you know, with the outbreak of virus there, it's a really tough time to be in certain parts of China right now, and many people just indoors. But that's a great time to witness an endurance race, is it not? If
you can, put aside the worries of day-to-day life and sit down and enjoy one of the great sporting occasions of the world. Let's hope we can take your mind off everything else for the next day. 107.9 FM around the circuit here at Daytona International Speedway, across the USA and around the world, uninterrupted, live and free on RS2 IMSA Radio, and of course in sound and vision around the world as well on IMSA TV and the player at radio-show.co.uk. And add to that, here in the US, Sirius 216 and XM202. Plenty of ways for you to keep in touch. No excuse, Jeremy, for missing any of the action, aside maybe for a little cat nap here and there. It's allowed.
Ooh, I don't know, you might be struggling to have time for that. Just if you've seen that pole-winning Mazda RT24P at the front of the field, not in its usual livery. Yeah, different livery this year, white, a bit of red and a bit of blue. That's in deference to the new sponsor there, Idemitsu Japanese oil additive, and certainly what a great start for that company to be on the pole position here. Tremendous lap by Oliver Jarvis. I was a little bit surprised he didn't quite get down to the official lap record from 1 year ago, nor even within about half a second of what he managed in the Raw test a few weeks ago, but still, it was enough. He will start for the pole position, and this time they want the whole goal is for the Mazdas to be running a lot longer at the front of the field than was the case 1 year ago.
About a couple of hours ago, I was in exactly the same position as Ollie Jarvis is now, and sitting, and by that I mean not
on the pole
sitting.
Position.
Well, I was sitting in pole position right in behind the safety car, because I was given the tremendous honour of leading the Porsche Club America parade laps around here in the new all-electric Porsche Taycan. And I just thought to myself as we were driving round, fast forward a couple of hours, this will be Ollie sitting 2 or 3 car lengths behind this car. And even as I thought that, my heart rate went up a little bit. This is an extraordinary time for all of these drivers. The whole week and all of the off-season has been leading up to this. Porsche have locked out the front row in GT Le Mans with the 2 new 911 RSRs -19. 19 is the new car. Signifies, of course, that they started racing with this car back in early September at Sebring in the United Kingdom, which was the first round of the championship for the World Endurance Championship. And they've already been successful in that. Johnny Palmer, you're the voice of the WEC for Radio Show Limited. A couple of wins already, so that car new here, but not new to competition.
Certainly not. No, I think you meant to say Silverstone rather than Sebring. But
Yes, I did.
4
Yes,
hours,
I did.
4 hours of Silverstone was a race win for the brand new Porsche, and it really was brand new back in late August, and they did incredibly well to win that 4-hour race. And a good result at the 6 hours of Fuji. Wasn't a race win, but it was then at Shanghai. So clearly the car is very strong on the shorter races. Let's see how it deals with 24 hours. It'll be the first one that these cars have tackled.
Then Bramaris, who's in Canberra in Australia. Kilvey says, love this time of the motorsport year. The only reason to get out of bed at 5:30 a.m, said Brett Whitehouse. Also in Australia, the world of endurance is coming together with IMSA Radio, IMSA TV and the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. I think I'm more revved up than the drivers at the moment as Ollie Jarvis brings them really slowly and now goes for the throttle as we go green for 2020 season opener for IMSA. And across the line, the pole sitting Mazda DPI of Ollie Jarvis has a bit of a lead going on to the infield for the first time round the outside. Felipe Nasser in the red and white Cadillac from Whelan Engineering tries to make it too wide through the chicane at 2 and 3 and somehow squeezes through into third position and immediately attacks the number 6 of Juan Pablo Montoya, the orange and white Penske Acura. That's allowing Ollie Jarvis to be able to weave left and right to get some heat into his Michelin tyres. He's got half a second or so on the rest of the field as they head to the west end of the circuit for the first time. And then from 5 to 6 and on to the high banks on lap 1.
Yeah, Jarvis leads then. Good getaway it was from Juan Pablo Montoya, who's now got an awful lot of bother from right behind Felipe Nasser, who's there in the red and white Whelan Engineering Cadillac DPI. Car number 31 in third position, but Ollie Jarvis making a real break for it. 1.4 seconds his gap through the first split, and it's very much about the fight for second and third on this opening lap. Then Jonathan Bomarito is fourth. Fifth position, Ryan Briscoe and his Konica Minolta Cadillac, and then Tristan Vautier in sixth position. Ben Keating, a good getaway in the LMP2 category, and Nick Tandy leads in GTLM in the 911 numbered Porsche.
Now, you say that, and I thought I saw the two Porsches swap positions there. Tony Garcia was right in there.
Yeah, Garcia's
as well.
Between the two of them.
Yeah,
Tandy still leads. Right. Vantor's dropped to third.
That's what I saw with Antonio Garcia, then making up a position, splitting the two Porsches. Leader is across the line already. Here comes the P2 field, led at the moment by Ben Keating, as Johnny said. Yeah, the Corvette in between the two Porsches. That's 3 of the 4 brand new cars to in IMSA competition in 2020 for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Now, we've had a full lap, I think I can say. Nice to see a clean getaway.
Indeed so, yes. I'm pleased you did wait till the end of the first 3.56 miles, though, before you said that.
Thank you.
No hashtag blame Hindy just yet.
Nope.
Roger Penske, what a year he had in 2018. He bettered it in 2019. Had his teams winning all over the globe. A banner year for them. Can they make it an even brighter start to 2020 than the year that they finished up having last year?
Brilliant first lap there by Ben Keating in number 52 PR1 Matheson's Motorsports Class A, the LMP2 car. He was a full 4.3 seconds clear of Henrik Hedman in second place in that class. Ben Keating, what a star he is. Talking to some of the guys this morning from the PR1 team, and you know, they're just super impressed with him. I mean, he's as quick. Gabriel Aubry apparently is struggling to match his pace.
Now, hearing from Jamie Howe down in the pit lane that already the GTD pole sitter has a problem. Now, it's not necessarily a problem that will immediately give him issue. It's not a mechanical problem with the car, but the radio is not functioning the way it should. So at the moment, it's not slowing Zachary Robichon down, but he can hear them, they can't hear him. So it's going to have to be a bit of quick thinking from Zach here to work out a code with his team when he goes past the line. If his one comes in, flash the lights twice, tap on your helmet, whatever it is you're going to do, put a little flag out the window. I'm not sure if he carries a handkerchief with him. You know, the youngsters don't seem to do that anymore.
No. Well, Jeremy Shaw was telling me earlier on in the week his technique of contacting the team at Snetterton during the 1980 will hire, 24 hours, I think, which is just a series of waving and thumbs up, thumbs down. That worked. So going slightly faster here than the Snetterton front straight.
And before anybody says, Zachary, no texting and driving.
Yes.
Coming up to 5 minutes completed, and we can just take stock at the moment. It's been a sensible but competitive opening, with the big movers in GT Le Mans being Corvette Racing and Antonio Garcia, who's moved up through the field. Dwight Merriman in the number 18 Orica in LMP2 has let a couple of the GT cars go past him in the Era Motorsport machine. And in GTD, it's still Porsche, BMW, Ferrari, Lexus, Audi, Lamborghini, Acura. 7 different manufacturers in the top 7 positions, and separated by, well, 2 or 3 cars lengths apiece right there. Decent opening as the GT Daytona field heads into the bus stop. Slightly different curbs on the bus stop this year, and particularly the entry curb. A little bit of a problem with that. It was starting to break up a bit at the road. It was relayed, and then there's been some plastic additions to the curbs. They show white if you can see the onboard pictures that are going around the world from the Lexus number 14 at the moment in the hands. Who is in the 14 at the moment, JP?
14 started at the back, remember. Parker Chase, 17th place.
Yes. Well, the little white lines in between the curbs aren't painted, they are plastic strips. Very close quarters competition from 2 Lamborghinis a lap or so ago. Side drafting is a thing here, and the blue car down to the lower side is the Paul Miller Racing machine, and you will get an aerodynamic tow or a little boost if you dare get very close to the car on the outside. The GT Daytona cars may be quote-unquote the entry level to the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, but they are very sophisticated race cars, particularly in terms of the aerodynamics, Johnny Palmer.
Yes, they are. Yeah, true enough. And actually, some of the Cup car versions of these machines faster down the straights, but they can't make the turns as well as a GT3 car. Got a huge rear wing on all of these cars, which helps with the downforce on the rear, and that front splitter is pretty menacing as well. The car you hear in the background is Jeff Westphal on board his Scuderia Corsa Ferrari with the WeatherTech branding, trying to close in on car 96, which is driven by Robbie Foley for Turner Motorsport.
Into the bus stop on the far side of the circuit from us. Little squeak from the brakes. Don't take too much to the inside. Nobody has told Jeff Westphal that as he nails the left-hand curb in the WeatherTech Ferrari. El Perry has tweeted at IMSA Radio using the hashtag IMSA Radio D24. Where are the Corvettes? I can't hear them. Yes, it is different. It is different. That flat plane crank still normally aspirated, those cars. It is not the same sound as before. I'd say the same, by the way, if you're a Porsche file. The now 4.2 litre flat 6 that sits in front of the gearbox but behind the driver in the new 911 RSR 19s. The exhausts routed a completely different way and come out just in front of the rear wheels rather than in the rear diffuser as they're used to do, and that's changed the acoustic properties of those engine notes just a little bit. 8 minutes down, and it's Tandy that leads in the GT Le Mans category for Porsche. Another Porsche leading, that's Zachary Robichon in GT Daytona. LMP2, double duty for Ben Keating. He is in 2 different cars in this race, in 2 different classes. And Mazda from Paul with Ollie Jarvis leads it at the moment. Opening thoughts from Jeremy Shaw. Sensible opening. Yeah, very much so. And Oliver Jarvis sort of leapt out to an immediate lead, 1.3 seconds clear at the end of the first lap, then 2.1, 3.0, 3.2 subsequently. Now that's stabilised. 3 seconds was the gap as he completed lap 5. He has also set the fastest lap of the race at a 1:35.802, which is
well over a second outside the lap record. That was a 34.5 set last season by Felipe Nasr. The other categories, Ben Keating is just pulling away again in LMP2. 13 seconds already it was last time around. Cameron Castles, though, has made a good start for the Performance Tech Motorsports team, up into second place now in LMP2, ahead of Henrik Hedman.
So Ollie Jarvis at the moment has got a clear track ahead of him as he heads down into the bus stop. It won't be long though before he starts catching the back of the GT Daytona field. I was talking with Brian Redman and Hurley Haywood early in the week at a Porsche forum, and Brian saying in 1970 when Porsche and the 917 won here for the first time, it was 3 laps before he caught the back of the field. But he was pulling 224 miles an hour on the banking and no bus stops at all, of course.
Yeah, and I suppose I saw Derek Bell this morning after the parade from the historic cars here, and even this morning in the 962 he was pulling 200 down here into turn 1. And,
no, I'm sure.
Loved it.
We weren't allowed to go that fast on my parade lap. I think you might have got the better of the deal there, JP.
Possibly so, yeah. Because Tim Pendergast, who was driving the pace car with me alongside him, certainly wasn't hanging around either. And thank you to him and all involved for that experience. Just over 10 minutes gone, and Ollie Jarvis, well, lead came down a little bit on that sector, so 2.8 seconds now rather than just over 3. Ben Keating, fastest lap after fastest lap, a 139.180 he's down to now in the leading LMP2 car, which is 9th overall behind all 8 DPIs. Remember, Ricky Taylor crashing heavily in qualifying, had only set a 144 up until that point, so that was actually slower than a lot of the GTLM cars, but the way that the grid is then split for the starting positions, he's still tagged on the back of the other 7 DPIs and has made progress, overtaking Joao Barbosa into 7th place in the number 7 Acura.
Jamie listening into the radio, listening to us talking about Brian Redmond catching the traffic. What are the leading prototypes being told, Jamie, how as far as catching the rear of the field is concerned?
Well, they're being told that in the next 2 laps they're going to start catching up to the GT classes. It'll be GT Daytona first and then GT Le Mans. They're also being warned that they're in their own battle right now, and then the traffic is very tight in this early stage of the race. Nobody's been able to string out any sort of a lead, so once they start catching the back of the GT Daytona field, it's going to be tough work getting through.
It's going to be very tough work indeed, and Ollie Jarvis can now see the Lexus as he heads in towards the kink. He's not quite yet there yet. With a bit of luck, he might not catch them through that. Oh no, my goodness, that Mazda carries a huge amount of speed through the dogleg and into the west hairpin, and now has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 GTD cars in fairly close company right in front of him as they head through turn 6 in behind the Black Swan Racing Porsche, which started the week, this shell at least, started as a Wright Motorsport car. There goes the leader on the high side. That's the right etiquette. Faster cars go to the top of the banking. Fabulous work by Black Swan. They had, dives down the inside of the gear car. The Lamborghini just drifting up to the wall there as the leader was coming through, but Ollie Jarvis was awake and alert. The 54 green, white and silver car, by the way, destroyed in an accident, strange accident with the wall, and it couldn't be fixed here, and Wright donated their spare chassis, but you have to change major components, so suspension, engine and gearbox all had to go in, and that was a long night, Johnny Palmer, for the Black Swan boys, but my goodness, they did a great job. When we saw the car roll out, it looked like it just come off the truck on Wednesday morning. Yeah,
phenomenal, and they were able to get the best part of a 90-minute session under its wheels as well. Almost 2 abreast for 2nd and 3rd, with Felipe Nasr in the red and white wheel and engineering car, chasing down Juan Pablo Montoya in the leading Acura from Team Penske. The gap's 3.6 seconds to the front of this race, which is still Ollie Jarvis pounding around this Daytona International Speedway, but no doubt about the fight in the early stages between Montoya and Nasr for 2nd and 3rd positions.
Somebody needs to tell Ben Keating that he's in an LMP2 car. He's closer to the back of the DPI field than he is to the rest of the LMP2s. It's quite extraordinary. It's absolutely flying along at the moment. So now we have traffic playing a part here, with just under 15 minutes of the 24 hours having been completed under clear January skies at Daytona International Speedway. At IMSA Radio, and the hashtag is IMSA Radio D24, sound and vision from the World Centre of Racing, with IMSA Radio and TV joined together, as we will be for the whole of the season. And what a season we have in prospect for you if this is the kind of action that we're going to get.
So Dwight Merriman making his prototype debut this weekend. He's just passed the GTLM leaders, behind whom he'd slipped back in the early stage of this race. So he now leaves the GTLM guys on their own. Number 911 ahead of number 3, number 912. What's interesting to me is that Philip Eng in the number 25 BMW has slipped more than 5 seconds behind the top 3 at this stage. Didn't expect that necessarily, but Tommy Milner, who's bottled up behind him, and John Edwards are right there. Alessandro Pierguidi in the recent Ferrari. He's, I'm sure, pretty just content to stay where he is at the moment.
Number 10, Connington, Minolta, Cadillac, Ryan Briscoe down the inside of this train of GT Daytona cars as he comes out of the international hairpin on the infield straight towards the dogleg. The left-handed kink just have to lift a little bit there because he wasn't on the optimum line and sweeping across from the white line at the right-hand side of the road. I've got to tell you, at 70 miles an hour, that's quite an interesting corner. I can't imagine what it's like at the speeds that these guys are going. So the first 15 minutes are in the book. It's been green flag racing all the way. Here's how it stands. GTD, Zachary Robichon leading by round about a second from the BMW of Robbie Foley in second, the number 96 car. The 63 WeatherTech Ferrari is in third with Jack Westphal. GT Le Mans, Porsche, Corvette, Porsche. Then BMW, Chevrolet, Porsche, Ferrari very close together in the battle for fourth on down. LMP2, Ben Keating's checked out. He's in a different zip code at the moment. And at the front of the field, the overall Mazda DPI leads for the pole sitting Oliver Jarvis by 2.5 seconds. Then it's 7/10 back from Juan Montoya in second to Felipe Nasr in third, respectively, in the Acura number 6 and the 31 in third position. Although they're much closer than that as they go across the line this time. And the black Mustang sampling number 5 trying to go down the inside. That's the battle for 7th and 8th position between Ricky Taylor and Joao Barbosa as they're trying to make up some positions through traffic. We might as well get this out of the way now. 38 sets of tyres for the DPI runners. So that was 38 sets of tyres from the very start of free practice 1 for the DPIs. That's the IMSA medium compound. 38 sets of IMSA medium for LMP2, 37 for the GT Le Mans runners. Although they, of course, have the Michelin range of tyres between them, and GTD 30 sets of the Michelin S8Ms. Those tyres allocated, as I say, from the first free practice session. As far as time is concerned, to score points in DP and GTLM, 2 hours per driver. LMP2 and GTD, 4.5 hours. And the maximum time for anybody, and this is an issue for Ben Keating, because this is not per car, this is per driver. 13 hours maximum and no more than 4 hours in any 6 for Ben Keating. And as I say, that's driver dependent, Jeremy, not in each individual car in which he's entered.
That's right, and they've got a pretty good plan, or Ben has a pretty good plan. It is to do the first 2 stints in this the start of this race in the PR1 Matherson Motorsports LMP2 car. After that, he then concentrates on the GTD car all the way through till 2 in the morning. Then he'll be done with the GTD, and the rest of the race he can concentrate on getting his minimum driving time in the PR1 car. So I think that's a really good, sensible thing. Rather than going back and forth between the 2 cars, he's going to do the stint now. Then it's for pretty much 12 hours, just concentrate on the GTD, making sure he doesn't break that 4 hours and 6, and then back to LMP2 for the end of the race.
Talking about GTD, just want to tip my cap to Spencer Pumpelly, who started the race in 16th position in the number 44 GRT Magnus Lamborghini Huracan. He now has the fastest lap in the class, a 1:47.012, and has got himself up to 9th place from 16th position. So not necessarily focusing on that drive at the sharp end, but I think he could be involved in the top 6 in the next, let's say, half an hour or so. Terrific opening stint. I mean, the bit will have been between his teeth because that car wasn't able to qualify after a gearbox went on 0 mileage.
But that means they started at the back, so I'll guarantee you they put a brand new set of Michelins on that.
Yep.
So yes, they might have a slight advantage in the first few laps, but even so, I'm not at all rubbishing the effort that's been put in by Spencer Pumpelly. GT Le Mans action, 25 BMW. That's the red, blue and mainly white BMW from Rahal Letterman Lanigan with Philippe Eng. He's got Tommy Milner, John Edwards, his teammate, and Alessandro Perguidi, as close as you can physically get for GT Le Mans cars without them actually being stacked on top of each other or side by side, of course, before anybody says that. They're heading through the kink at the moment, and they have the second place Acura of Juan Montoya among them, and Juan is not backwards and coming forwards, even with GT cars. He's gone around the outside of the BMW through the western hairpin and now comes under the rear wing of the very, very attractive grey, metallic and yellow striped Corvette. He'll go to the high side through speedway turns 1 and 2 and clears that little gaggle of traffic, and in doing so gives himself a little bit of breathing space on the red and white 31 Whelen Cadillac, which is in behind him. Jeff Gordon down in the pit lane, watching on there, I think, Jeremy, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know.
Look at that. So he just looked away from the screen for a moment. Well, this is exactly what we expected to see here at Daytona. Blue skies in the Sunshine State of Florida, and great motor racing, exactly as advertised, with green flag having flown just on 19 minutes ago. And here comes the gloss black number 10 dive bombing down the inside of the number 25 BMW in the hands of Philippe Eng into turn 1. It's a tricky braking area, that, Johnny, even in the dry, because you're coming down from the banking, albeit the slightly less severe banking of the tri-oval, and making that transition easy to lock a wheel up in the prototypes with no ABS, and the GT Le Mans cars as well.
You're trying to slow, you're trying to turn at the same time, and the apex is sort of over there all the time, and you can't quite necessarily get the lock required, the grip required, so it's diminishing returns if you're not careful. And there must have been a bit of a decision to make there from Ryan Briscoe as to which side the BMW was going to go. Thankfully, Philippe Eng saw the Konica Minolta Cadillac in the mirrors and kept well right so that Briscoe could slip through. He is still 5th and trying to hunt down Jonathan Bomarito in the 55 Mazda.
And in the GTLM, you just talked about Philippe Eng there. He's slipping back from the top 3 cars, the 2 Porsches and a number 3 Corvette, at the rate of a second a lap now. Each of the last 4 laps has been almost exactly a second each time the BMW is losing out. So we're going to have to keep an eye. We've seen in the past that the BMW can be hard on its tyres. I'm not saying that's the reason for this. It could be just being a conservative pace in the early stages, but that's something I think we should need to keep an eye on.
I love multi-class racing. I love multi-class racing. I'm going to get that out there right now. There's always something happening somewhere. Absolutely. Let's go down to Jamie Howe in the pit lane. Jamie?
Well, Oliver Jarvis is still leading this field in that number 77 Mazda. He will be sharing the car with Tristan Nunez and Olivier Pla. Tristan, you will be next in the car. We talked about the tire allotment. We talked about the drivers. You have to backtrack it at this point. So how do you manage driver freshness from the start of the race?
Well, I think doing longer duration stints from the start is going to help us get more rest when we're out of the car. So that's kind of the strategy we kind of thought about. We'll see after this stint. Ollie's doing a great job so far. We'll see how fresh he is after he gets out. And if we need to adjust our strategy a little bit as far as drive time, then we will. But as of right now, we're trying to give the guy who's out of the car as much rest as possible.
Last year was a benchmark year for Mazda, Team Yost, this entire program, multiple wins, podiums, but this race was a heartbreaker. With the fire towards the end of it, how does the team come back from that and start fresh in 2020?
Yeah, I know we had a very, very pivotal second half of the season last year, and I think we just needed to get that out of the way. And obviously our main focus is having a good result here. That's everyone's really dream if you're racing on the sports car side of America. So this race would be huge for us. It would be a dream come true for me. And the preparation we've had coming into this race weekend, I think, has been exceptional. The guys on the crew and engineers have really given us a race-winning package. So I think we have all the pieces aligned, and just got to go out there and run a clean race and get ourselves to the finish.
The team car, the number 55, that crew is up on the wall right now. Jonathan Bomarito's behind the wheel. He told me out on the grid, John, that he is more excited to start this race than he has been in a long time. Everyone at Mazda Team Yost feeling reinvigorated in 2020.
Well, the summer of Mazda last year with those 3 wins on the trot, they had then to deal with their lucky talisman, John Doonan, moving away. I'm going to tell you, I've spoken to the new man. He's just as much of a racer and has gasoline running through his blood as John did. I foresee good things for Nelson and the rest of the team. Battle on the circuit, onto the high bank, side by side. Acura on the high side, Cadillac on the low side. Gets the drive out of turn 6 and now has position, but they are literally side by side. Now, who's the bravest of the brave down into the bus stop? Johnny Palmer, you know all about getting the braking point right there.
Certainly, yeah, and it looks like Nasser's hit the brakes at just the perfect time. He slithers up the inside of Juan Pablo Montoya, was there anyway to outmuscle the Acura, had that crucial inside line and slots through into second place. So now we get to see what that Cadillac can offer in free air and whether it can start to eat into a 4.5 second gap.
Very interesting. I mean, that was just torque coming off the onto the banking there, and
that was centre off, wasn't it? As you'd say in NASCAR terms, that was centre off torque, because he was side by side, Jeremy, on not the optimum line coming out of 6 really early on in the piece there.
Yeah, so good move there by Nasser. A couple other notes. The number 25 BMW Philippe Eng, we talked about him struggling to hold on to the top 3 in the class. He has now been overtaken by Tommy Milner in the number 4 Corvette. Those cars came across the start, which right now the Corvette is ahead, not pulling away by very much at the moment. Behind him are both of the BMWs, and then hanging on to them pretty comfortably, I would suggest, is Alessandro Pierguidi in the Ferrari. In GTD, no change at the front. Zachary Robichon leads by about 3 seconds over Robbie Foley, who's been pursued closely by Jeff Westphal. Trent Hinman has got past Frankie Montecalvo in number 57, ahead of number 12 a couple of laps ago. And number 44 car continues to work his way forward. That's Spencer Pompelli up to 7th place now in car number 44.
Zachary Robichon crossing the line in the FAF Motorsports Porsche to complete another lap in the GTD category. He's got at a fairly decent distance away now Robbie Foley in the Turner Motorsport Liqui Moly sponsored BMW. The gap from first to second in GTD is 3.6 seconds. It's Jeff Westphal for Scuderia Corsa and the Ferrari 3rd. Trent Hinman in the Heinricher Racing Acura is 4th. Rolf Eichen and then Frankie Montecalvo. But Spencer Pompelli's gained 2 more places since I mentioned him. Still the fastest lap in the class, 146.9. So those new tyres, if indeed that's what 44 have done, GRT Magnus, hanging on pretty well now. And he's only 1 car away from the top 6.
28 minutes gone, or if you prefer, we're on lap number 18. Black Swan going another lap back to the number 6 of Juan Montoya, who has dropped some 1.5 seconds since he was passed by Felipe Nasser, but it's still 4.7 seconds between Nasser and Ollie Jarvis.
Yeah, that's sort of gone out just a little bit over the last few laps. It was around about 4 seconds, and on the lap that the pass was made by Nasser out to 4.7, that stabilised last time around the gap between first and second, between Jarvis and Nasser. In GTLM, it's still Nick Tandy who leads, but he's got the Corvette and the sister car, or sister Porsche, of Vantor, 1, 2, 3, those three cars very, very close. Certainly a really good opening, I think a promising opening stint, particularly for the Corvette team with this brand new C8R.
I think they'll be loving this right now. But right now, it's not just about now, it's about this time tomorrow, isn't it? They would love to win this race, but think back to the Ford GT coming here for the first time with Chip Ganassi, with so much hope and expectation, and they had, at least with one of the cars, a bit of a race to forget as far as that was, and that was again just new car issues, Johnny. It's not going to be the easiest thing to do to open your racing account with a 24-hour event at one of the toughest venues in the world. I've said this before, this looks like an easy track. Yeah, it's just flat out, round the banks, a bit of a wiggly road course. It's not that at all. And the amount of concentration in the 13 hours and 21 minutes of darkness here that you require, even with this reduced field, it's a real test of team and machine.
Yeah, Ford's first year, 2016. They won Le Mans later on that year in June, coming back in the milestone year since their first victory in 1966. But yes, that car did struggle, and I think this is a true test, isn't it, to kick off the motorsport season. It can turn into a very public test session if it goes rather awry. But then again, you know, what an impressive mark on your breastplate it is if you manage to get the victory in the first year of a new car. It shows how good the manufacturer is in terms of design work, but also the punishing nature of this track. And Porsche turning up with a new car, Corvette turning up with a new car, and there's an awful lot to prove over the next 23.5 hours. Nick Tandy leads by 0.8 of a second then over Tonio Garcia, who not so long ago set a very good lap time. GTLM's fastest lap in the hands of the Spaniard then, despite him being in second place, a 1:43.6, but the Porsches have been capable of putting in 1:43.7s, so really not very far away. Tandy, Garcia, Vantor, then the first of the BMWs with Philipp Eng at the wheel of the number 25 BMW team RLL
Pit stops,
M8.
Johnny. Pit stop starting.
55 in, first of all.
This is the Mazda, the Soul Red machine. Let's head down to the pit lane.
I mentioned that the crew was up on the wall. They've been ready for this for the last several laps. So far, smooth and easy. They're taking on 4 new Michelin tires. Jonathan Bomarito will stay behind the wheel of the car while they're waiting on fuel. They are cleaning off the windscreen. I am surprised at how dirty this car is already in this early first stint of the race. The track was awfully dusty, clean and easy. Jonathan's back out here.
Jamie, that's extraordinary, that on the front of the car as well. It almost looks like someone had maybe been off the track in front of it, thrown some dirt onto it, or were they just extremely large bugs that were on there?
It looked like a lot of dust, so I'm not sure if the track just got dirty overnight. Remember, the only laps that were done this morning were from all of the hot laps and the experience that you had certainly early on, but there was no race, there was no morning warm-up, so the night dust just, I think, settled on the racetrack.
Gotta say, we're going to have to keep an eye on that. It is. That was really dirty on the front end. Jeremy.
Philipp Eng has got back past the Corvette of Tommy Milner. It's interesting, for 4th position in GTLM, and that second gaggle of cars now almost 12 seconds behind the rest of the pack. In LMP2, John Ferrano has got into the groove now in car number 8. That's the Tower Motorsport by Starworks entry, up into second place ahead of Cameron Castles, as we see the leaders onto the pit lane.
A couple other cars now taking this opportunity. The number 77 Mazda, our race-leading prototype, in right now. No driver change, as we heard Tristan say. Oliver Jarvis will stay behind the wheel. Both of the Penske entries, the number 6 and the number 7, that Acura's also coming to pit lane. Looking down, I don't see driver changes happening from them either, but the car, this number 77, also very dirty.
Yeah, not as much on the front end at least, but there was a lot of work going into the screen, and I did see a crew member lean over right at the end of the stop and run his gloves across the wheel arch, the fender on the left-hand side, as much as to say, what's this crud all over our lovely cars? So just wonder maybe if somebody's been dropping some oil or something, did have a a radio message earlier on that there's going to be some fluids added to the Lamborghini of Gia Motorsport. Christina Nielsen behind that car. So I just wonder if there's something being lost. The 74 AMG GT as well, also with marks on the front of that car as if something has been sprayed from somebody onto it. 31 due to come in, our new leader. That is Felipe Nasr in the Whelan car, and Shea Adam is down there and may need a bit of extra work on that car, Shea, so keep an eye on that as it heads into the pit lane right now. Here's Shea Adam with the first of the Cadillac pit stops.
Engineering Cadillac is the first one to come in and hit its marks because it was furthest up on the track thanks to Felipe Nasr. Fuel and at the very least right side tires. They do have left side up on the wall though. We also have the Performance Tech Orica. Great start from that car, having been rebuilt last night. That car will also get 4 new tires. We've got the JDC Banana Boat. That's the number 85 Cadillac also in. Fuel and tires for them. And the race defending win from last year, Konica Minolta Cadillac, is in. They're doing fuel and new tires for this. 4 tires still waiting on the Whalen Engineering Cadillac to get moving once again though. Now it does as Felipe Nasr takes it back out in a nice cloud of smoke. There's no apparent dirt on this one though, as was compared to some of the other cars. The Konica Minolta car looks filthy though. The black is not a good color for hiding any sort of dust or any sort of grossness on the front of that. There goes Ryan Briscoe, and easily beats out the JDC Miller Motorsports car.
Sean, among others, has tweeted in at IMSA Radio using the hashtag at IMSA Radio D24. 30-35 minutes. Is that the expected stint for DPI? For the first one, I would say yes. I think we might squeak it out a little bit closer to 40. There was 2 warm-up laps. The cars will have been brought to the grid, and they'll not want to push too much close to the line. They'll be taking some data, Jeremy, from what they've refilled the tanks this time. I would think maybe a lap or 2 more, but no more than that if we get another full green flag stint. So expect something between 33 to 37 minutes.
Yeah, 36 to 38 I think is probably going to be the normal round, probably around about 21, 22 laps. I would think. We just did 21 laps for the number 31. Number 5 car is now on to pit lane. That is the last of the DPI cars to make his first pit stop with 22 laps now in the books.
And pulls up in front of...
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, a very good planned stop for this team. JDC Miller Motorsports running the Mustang sampling car. It's the first time that the number 5 has not been under the Action Express banner in a very, very long time. But still is well behind the wheel of this car. 4 new Michelin. They are nice and shiny. They don't have the stickers on them though because they still take the time to take those things off. Waiting on fuel. There was a little bit of a clean of the windshield, but it's not too terribly dirty. Joao will just feel like he's wearing a pair of, well, perhaps finger-spotted sunglasses. Fuel probe comes out. Goodbye, Joao. See you in about 38 to maybe 42 minutes.
Hello to Gerard Naveau, the CEO of the WEC. He's here this weekend. Just tweeted, Rolex 24 started, and it marks a new era between the FIA, WEC and IMSA for the LMDH category. Starting soon. Have a good race, everyone. Gerard, thank you very much indeed for allowing us to be, and be in particular to be involved. You, President Doonan and President Fillon, as well as Mr. France and Mr. Bennett, making me very, very welcome at that historic announcement earlier in the week. I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to go through some listener questions with some of the principals in the next 24 hours. You're all welcome here, all of the principals from that in our booth right next to race control. I have to say, Johnny, I know I'm known for getting sometimes slightly overexcited, a bit overexcitable, Edgar. At least I don't set things alight often. But the thought of adding in perhaps another 15 or 20 wild card entries, if you like, from the World Endurance Championship in Hypercar and LMDH, as well as, of course, the other ACO categories, including the LMP2s and the GT Le Mans cars, all would be eligible here as well. I mean, if I'm excited about this, that you'd have to I think, shoot me with a rhino dart before we got underway.
Yeah, what a way to start. I was going to say the motorsport season, more like the motorsport calendar year, but this race does a splendid job at that anyway. And then if you can get plenty of cars that we're more used to seeing at Le Mans to take part in this fantastic Daytona 24-hour race, then yeah, the more the merrier. The current car count is fine, but I think something really needed to be done to arrest a potential slide in the future, and the new plans are very exciting indeed. I wait to hear them fleshed out even further when we get to Sebring in March.
At IMSA Radio, if you want to get in touch, hashtag IMSA Radio D24. Happy Burns Night to Roddy John Murray in the Western Isles of Scotland. We dram and a bit of haggis tonight. I would say Max Swain's would be my favourite. Halls of Perth, not so bad, but Max Swain's of Edinburgh always been my favourite haggis. So I'm not expecting to have that as part of our diet this evening, but
Really?
No, disappointingly, I do like a bit of haggis. I do. Having lived and worked in Edinburgh for quite a while and done a couple of 3 years of Burns Night promotions. So 40 minutes. When do we see the P2s, Jeremy? Have they already done?
They've already been in. Yeah,
right. So GT Le Mans should be next.
Yeah, exactly. In about where are we now? 10 minutes or so, a little bit less perhaps. No major changes amongst the prototypes at the front after their first round of pit stops. Number 77 leads by a slightly reduced margin, 2.6 seconds now over the number 31 car of Felipe Nasser, with Montoya on his heels. Number 55 car remains in 4th position. Number 7 was the biggest gainer, up 2 positions during that round of pit stops, now ahead of both the number 10 and the 85. The number 5 car, Joao Barbosa, though, having been running along at the tail of the class, but he's now a full 8 seconds back at the back. He actually made up a bit of ground on that last lap by turning his best lap of the race. That's Joao Barbosa, but he is in the 8th position. No changes in LMP2. Ben Keating has a huge lead.
Sorry, Jeremy, I was looking away at something else there, so apologies if you've already mentioned this, but after the pit stop, the gap between first and second has halved. It's now just under 2 seconds between Ollie Jarvis and Felipe Nasser.
Indeed, came down by 3/4 of a second on that last lap.
Now, was that the pit stop time, or is that just the, well, as you say, the last lap was awesome from
yeah, I mean, the gap was 3.4 seconds, and then 2.6, and then 1.8 last time around. So, you know, it's Felipe Nasser turning up the wick a bit, no question.
Well, we just mentioned listeners in the Western Isles. I think we've got it cleaned up over there at the moment. Joshua Smith is always there as well, and Chris has just found our live stream as well. He says, great, that gets me out of watching Love Island, which is what the missus has got on the television at the moment. This is Love Actually, mate. Tandy, Garcia, Vanto, the top 3. Porsche, Corvette, Porsche, separated by 2.5 seconds in GT Le Mans. Robichon, Foley and Westfall have got 5 seconds between them in GT Daytona. Jarvis, Nasser and Montoya, 5 seconds between the top 3 in DPI, and 52 seconds between Ben Keating, Cameron Castles and Ben Hanley, and 42 of that is between first and second. Ben Keating has cleared off.
Yeah.
More well known for his exploits in the GT car, but my goodness, he's enjoying that LMP2 machine.
Indeed so, and he's got himself ahead of, he got himself all the GTLM cars between himself and the second place car, which is now again Cameron Castles, who's moved back into second place in Performance Tech Motorsports, and Ben Hanley are now aboard number 81 car, so we can expect to see the number 81 Dragon Speed car moving its way up toward the tail end of Cameron Castles pretty soon. The 62 Ferrari, however, that was pitted a little bit earlier than I would have expected. That came in after 21 laps actually, so a little bit earlier than the rest. I wonder whether he's just trying to get that car into the pits, that the Risi team get the car out and get it out ahead of that train of cars which he was behind, i.e. the 2 BMWs and the second of the Corvettes. We'll see once the pit stops are completed by the other contenders in GTLM whether that ploy was successful.
very interested to see when the GT Le Mans cars do start peeling off into the pit lane. 3 Corvette heading down into turn number 1. Not the engine that you're hearing in the background. That's on the high banks of 3 and 4, having just gone through the bus stop by the sound of what I was hearing there. And still 23 and a quarter hours to go. Zachary Robichon doing a fine job at the front of the GT Daytona field, and Antonio Garcia just still can see the back of the 911 of Nick Tandy up ahead of him as he comes to put a lap on Matt McMurray in the pink and black Auto Nation 86 Acura NSX through turn 6 and onto the high banks. What a beautiful day.
No one inside here on the front straight at all.
Well, that, you know what that means though, Jeremy, in a couple of laps we're going to have a great gaggle of cars again.
Well, yeah, they're all now between the bus stop and the kink, basically.
Who was it the other day who said, I think it was Matt Bell, wasn't it, when he was in the booth with us? Matt, we wish you well, thanks for being with us. Great comments from you the other day when you were here. He said you could release these guys at 10-second intervals and within 20 laps they'd all be back together again. It's about this clumping phenomenon that we talk about. Tom O'Gorman as well has been our guest this weekend as one of our driver experts, and both of those young men adding real insight into our coverage here, and we thank them for that. And whilst we're in the early moments of the Rolex 24 Daytona, as in comes one of the GTD leaders, that's Jeff Westphal in the 63 car. I'll come back to my point in a moment. That's at Shear's end of the pit lane, I think. No?
I can see it.
Yeah.
It's Cooper McNeil who is getting into that car. Jeff Westphal out there doing 4 new tires for Cooper as well. So Silver Driver hands over to Silver Driver. And also coming in, the 25 BMW of Philip Ang, and one of the Corvettes, that was the silver one. So that would be the number 4 pitting together. The 25 BMW will not be doing a driver change, so Philip Ang staying aboard, but 4 shiny, slick new Michelin tires going on that BMW.
Early stages of the Rolex 24 Daytona for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. And just a quick reminder that our next IMSA event is Super Sebring, the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring, combined with the next round of the WEC. I was trying to work out what round is.
Not quite. There's a round between now.
Ah, yes, of course. Because yes, so WEC will be at COTA on February the 24th, and then they're with IMSA with a new start time on Friday of the meeting for the 68th annual Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring. So March the 19th, the Thursday, March the 20th, the Friday. We will be covering from March the 18th for the WEC, and of course on the Saturday it is the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring. Before that, as I say, I'm pretty certain it's somewhere near the 24th of Feb at COTA. Johnny Palmer on duty for that for us. And next weekend, full live coverage from Bathurst of the 12 hours in sound and vision across the Radio Show Limited network of channels. Let's go down the pit lane. Jamie Howe, you've got action.
We do. The 96 Turner Motorsports BMW in the box right now. No driver change, 4 new Michelins, and then our GTLM class leader Nick Tandy and the number 911 Porsche GT team entry also in. 4 new Michelins, fuel only, no driver change. We were laughing at Nick's all black carbon helmet earlier in the weekend after qualifying. I asked him about it. I said, were you just too lazy? You didn't get it painted? And he said, no, with the new engine configuration, the car is so much louder in the cockpit. He's actually been going through a rotation of helmets trying to figure out which one is going to be best suited for the full season. He's getting a second taste in the race right now.
And not following proper protocol exiting the pit lane was Nick Tandy, because he went from the transition lane in front of another car in the fast lane. We'll have to see if race control looks at that further. But the other car that was coming in is the number 19 Gear Racing Lamborghini. Christina Nielsen is getting out of the car, and they had a brand new steering wheel prepared to put in that car to try and deal with some of the issues that were being had. They also have oil that they're going to be adding to that car, so that will be going in too. 4 sticker tires though for the new driver. driver and still working on the installation of the new driver. There was a little bit of damage that was on the front, the right front of the 911 Porsche. I noticed that as it was going out, as if a bit of black gaffer tape had been installed there, but it's about to get really busy down here as the Gear Racing Lamborghini just waits on fuel, and as soon as that happens, everybody else is going to come in.
What was I going to say? Yeah, the race leader, Oliver Jarvis, turned his best lap of the race last time around on lap 28. He's now completed 29, actually, as I say that. Across the line he goes now to complete lap 30. That was a 1 minute 36.9. His fastest lap then a 35.74. Just after the pit stops, Juan Pablo Montoya set the fastest lap of the race at a 1:35.741. That was the Laurens Vanthoor Porsche, and the two leading GTLM cars now onto the pit lane.
And Laurens Vanthoor will stay behind the wheel of the number 912 Porsche. I was just talking to the team, and they said it's an unfortunate way to start the race for them. A couple of their crew members are back in the hotel with a stomach bug, so they're all filling in and doing the work that they can. It was a clean pit stop, 4 new Michelins, and topped off with fuel.
And the 74 Riley Technology Mercedes also coming in. Gar Robinson staying behind the wheel for a double. A bit of delay when the air jack didn't completely lift the car up off the ground, though. These look like they might be, nope, they're new, they're shiny too. New Michelin's going on the car for Gar. So he's going to have a full load of fuel and new tires. That's something that he'll have to get used to in the full season that he's running, sharing the car with Lawson Archibald. Ben Keating, their endurance driver, has already passed Gar a couple times out on track. Car comes off the air jacks, nice clean stop, just waiting on fuel. And the nozzle's still attached. The last time Gar drove at Daytona for this team, by the way, he finished third. That was driving a Viper with a very big hood. Now he's in a Mercedes with a big hood, and he does a nice getaway from the pit box.
It's the final wrap on the front of the Porsche that was peeling off, and I could see black underneath it. Thanks to Rob Chalmers for helping me out on that one. Thought I wasn't going mad. Big black mark on the front of that, and I thought he'd run into something. But it's the white cover that is peeling off. Hopefully that doesn't go anywhere that it shouldn't. More pit lane callers, and Jamie Howe has got a Lexus.
It is the number 12 Lexus from Aim Vassar Sullivan Racing. Frankie Monacovo qualified the car. He's going to go ahead and do a double stint behind the wheel of this machine. Not a whole lot of change within the organization for this 2020 season. And for Frankie, it looks like he's going to get 4 new Michelin tires. They're going to wait for the sister car, the number 14, to come in behind them as well. So just split them a little bit, just like we've seen with some of the other teams. There's no reason to create traffic on pit lane this early on in the race. And as the number 12 still waits on the fuel, the number 14 is now in behind him. It's Parker Chase behind the wheel of that car. 2020 was going to be his first full season with Aim Vassar Sullivan Racing. He'll start the race with a double stint as well, Shay.
It's fuel and tires for Lamborghinis down at the exit end of the pit lane for the 44 GRT Magnus car. They just now sent the car to go. It waited about a second longer than it had to. Madison Snow staying aboard the 48 Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini. Fuel probe comes out, he leaves, and will he get ahead of the 12 Lexus? No, he will not.
Scuderia Cameron Glickenhaus tuned in and listening to IMSA Radio on RS2 across the USA and around the world. Sirius 216, XM 202 in the US as well, 107.9 FM here at the track, and of course in Sound and Vision on IMSA TV and the player at radio-show.co.uk. Some of that is territory dependent. Thanks to Jamie for her first stint as the GTD leader. The FAF Porsche comes in to the pit lane, and that will be at Shear's end of things. The plaid Porsche passes by.
Yeah, can't leave before this pit stop. It's Team Canada. Zach Robichon expected to stay aboard for a second stint. Remember, no communication from him to the team. They are not addressing it as of yet, doing the tire change first. This is a team that used most of yesterday's practice to simply change tires. They would do 2 rotations per stop, then send the car out to do an outlap. They've already done all 4 tires. There's stickers on the car for Robichon, but unfortunately, the car that pits just ahead of him, the PPM Lamborghini, also in its pit box. I talked about this at the start of the race and how busy and frantic it's going to get down here. Well, Robichon is going to need a slight pushback to try and get out of his box because the 47 has stopped so far out. The engine has fired on the Porsche, still waiting on the fuel probe. They don't look as if they're going to push him back. Robichon goes on his own. Man, he narrowly avoided one of the tires left out by the Lamborghini team in front.
Which would have been a penalty. Remember our Porsche keys to the race. Green flag racing means green flag pit stops, no penalties, no mistakes. They will cost you an awful lap. Just a few moments ago, almost contact between the 86 Acura from MSR and the 12 in Vassar Sullivan Bayshore Lexus. They could not have been any closer going into turn 6, but sanity has prevailed. Discretion the better part of valour, etc, etc, and other niceties. They've got through without trading paint, Jeremy.
Fair bit of shuffling around in DTLM after that first round of pit stops, and number 911 car still leads, but number 912 has moved up into second position. Philipp Eng is now a lot closer to the two Porsches than he was in number 25 BMW, having moved up into the third position, just ahead of James Collado, with Antonio Garcia's Corvette having come into the pits in second place, resumed in fifth, and he's right behind Eng and Collado. Then a little bit of a gap back to John Edwards, and one assumes a slow pit stop for the number 4 Corvette, which is now a full 11 seconds off the back of the pack in GTLM.
As far as the laps completed, as we're coming down to the first hour, we've had 33 completed by Ollie Jarvis. Three wide on the banking again, all GT cars coming down towards the bus stop, and the GTD leaders in there with a couple of other GT cars. The WeatherTech Ferrari is in there, and around the outside comes the BMW GT Le Mans car. Excuse me, that was coming into turn 1 through the tri-oval. Those GTD cars, not to say, Johnny, there's not that much performance difference between the GTLMs in a straight line, or when I say a straight line on the tri-oval, but you know what I mean, not lifting for a corner. Those GT3 cars are pretty quick.
They certainly are, yeah, and getting off the corner, as you say, most impressive. The 63 car now circulating in third position, where it was pretty much before the stops. Pedro Lami's gone on board the 98 Aston Martin in GTD, which is run by Aston Martin Racing, by the way, and their ProDrive facility in Banbury in the UK, and that GT3 car now having just done a 146.566 with the Portuguese at the wheel. It is in 11th position in class, but the class is still led by Zachary Robichon for Pfaff Motorsports after a pretty tight pit stop. Wasn't much of a turning circle to get out of there, but he managed to avoid all the stray wheels and has rejoined in still the lead of the race. I've got pit stop times actually for the GTLMs that Jeremy was asking about. The 912, it took 1 minute and 25 on pit road. 911, 1 minute 22. So they saved 3 seconds compared to the sister machine. And I think you're also asking about the Corvette C8Rs, both doing 1 minute 25 second pit stop. So equal to the 912. The big winner is was the 911, therefore of Nick Tandy, 3 seconds quicker on pit road.
That's surprising because they came in, fairly close together and went out fairly close together, so that's odd.
Weird.
What
Okay.
about number 4 car, did you say?
4 is labelled as 125, 1 minute 25.
Which was how much slower than the other guys?
Well, the 3 and the 4 both did a 1 minute and 25 second
So
lap.
the same sort of lap time. Okay,
pit stop time, rather.
all of a sudden then he's lost a dozen seconds, has Tommy Milner, so that's curious.
Total time in pit for 3, 4 and 912, 1 minute and 25 is the information I have. I will
On the last time around, by the way, Oliver Jarvis must have had some some sort of issue with some traffic, because all of a sudden he turned a 1 minute 39.6, which is a lot slower than his by far his worst lap of the race so far. Has been lapping in sort of 35s and 6s, so it cost him about 4 seconds. His gap, the lead he'd built up of as much as 5.6 seconds, all of a sudden now down to less than 2 as Felipe Nasr begins to close in again. Pablo Montoya in third position, edging back, falling back just a little bit, 3.8 seconds a gap from second to third. Then Jonathan Bomarito, a couple of seconds behind him. He is a little bit closer, actually quite a bit closer. Over the last half a dozen laps, that gap between the number 6, number 55 has come down from 6 seconds to 2.5. But the rest of the train, led by the number 7 and Ricky Taylor, the second of the Acura cars, he is definitely dropping back by probably more than a second a lap, and he is just ahead of number 10 and 85. That's a pretty good battle then for 5th, 6th and 7th.
Cameron Castles, yes, he slipped back to third position, but that's mainly because Ben Hanley's got at the wheel of the number 81 Dragon Speed USA Oreca 07, and the Mancunian a gold-rated driver. So Hanley has got ahead, but what I want to say is Cameron Castles was second, back to third. Clearly that car that ended up on the top of the tyre wall at turn 6. When was that? Yesterday? Day before? Yesterday. So they built that car up again overnight, and it is really fast. Third position for the Performance Tech Motorsports Oreca 07.
Yeah, and what's interesting also about that battle in LMP2 is that Ben Hanley, having got up into second place, the deficit to Ben Keating has not come down at all, John.
Brilliant first hour of racing from Ben Keating. It's been an absolute cracker. Write this down: 36 laps completed in the first 60 minutes of the 2020 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series.